Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another video. Today we have so many exciting tidbits for The Mandalorian Season 3, but also the Bad Batch Season 2 Episode 11 Metamorphosis, and stay tuned to the end of the video because Dave Filoni has opened up about quite a few things, including The Last Jedi. But first things first, Mando Season 3. Grogu finally learned how to make friends. Well, kind of, instead of eating everything smaller than him. Some of my favourite moments in Star Wars are those that are silly and adorable, and when it comes to The Mandalorian, Jon Favreau, Rick Famuyiwa, Dave Filoni and the others really know how to include the light-hearted stuff well. These are the sorts of things that stick with us and make us fall in love with characters in new ways, but sometimes there can be a deeper interpretation to those scenes, and in Chapter 17, The Apostate, we got a moment on Navarro where Grogu hugged an Ansellan droidsmith. I know, it's just a cute moment where the puppeteers decided, what if this puppet squeezes this one for comedic effect? But I've been thinking about one aspect of Grogu's personality that we don't talk about enough. As fans, we spend a lot of time talking about his past, who took him from the temple, also his future, and his relationship to Din, but one thing that gets overlooked so often is how emotional Grogu is as a character, whether it's anger, frustration, jealousy, at times when he's protecting, and also towards the ones he loves like Din. Across the 2 seasons so far of Mando, and of course the Book of Boba Fett, it's all been very intense. And part of this is his attachment to Din, which is why Ahsoka didn't want to train him. But he probably also has a lot of pent-up emotion. From his mind going dark and being hidden for all those years, he probably suffers from PTSD. And that's why some fans believe that despite his infancy for his species, he may have regressed mentally after hiding his abilities and powers for so long and not using them. It's only now he's slowly starting to return to normal. But as I say, it's hard to tell, because 50 years old for a Yoda species is like 5 years old for anyone else, so he still is very young. But in this episode, he met Anzellans who were helping his dad rebuild IG-11, and he decided to go for it, to just give one of them a hug. I've seen some fans say he was trying to harm or eat this Anzellan, but it was pretty clear he just wanted a hug. And what's really interesting is that Grogu rarely meets creatures his own size, so this was the perfect opportunity for a cuddle. It was so precious. So many of us lost our minds when it happened. Grogu has such a golden heart, so long as, of course, you're not a frog egg or too small and therefore considered food, but you know what I mean. It was made even funnier when Din told him that he's not a pet. Shirley Henderson lent her voice to these Anzellans, as she did for Babu Frick in The Rise of Skywalker. Did you know she was also moaning Myrtle from Harry Potter? Her voice is iconic and distinctive. Anyway, this was one of my favourite scenes from the episode. If you want to check out my full breakdown of The Apostate, it's out now. Another tidbit from the episode I've seen mentioned in a couple of places is Ragnar, the Foundling being anointed at the start of the episode, never got to finish his pledge into the tribe. Halfway through promising to never remove his helmet, the sea monster came out and attacked. The fact that he never got to finish his sentence seems like deliberate foreshadowing. This season deals with redemption and transformation, and one thing that I believe is going to change is how members of the tribe perceive the philosophy of the way. More specifically, it's going to fall apart unless they open themselves up to other Mandalorians and realize it's not secrecy that is the key to their survival, but their strength as a people, as a united people. The tribe of the Children of the Watch was created as a response to Mandalorians losing their orthodoxy over time. It was a cult designed to reinforce the strictest aspects of Mandalorian creed. The Purge only made their isolation worse, and their religiosity got more intense. But if this season aims to reunite Mandalorians on their homeworld after Din goes there to atone, they're gonna have to work together. And eventually, Mando will realize he can be a Mandalorian without having to follow the way of Mandalore as interpreted by the tribe. And you never know, this might encourage other members of the tribe to do the same thing and renounce a tribalistic view of what it means to be a Mando. Bo-Katan tried to warn him about superstition, but for now, Din isn't listening to her. He's gonna go to Sundari, atone for his sins, but he's still got that willingness to work with her. Some fans also pointed out that the kid, Ragnar, had a similar helmet to Vizsla, and therefore, he might be his son. This is definitely a possibility, because the camera kept panning over to him during the initiation ceremony. Could this mean the tribe allows members to have children of their own, or did Paz rescue and adopt him, in the same way Din was saved by Death Watch? And so now, my dear friends, some more updates for The Mandalorian Season 3. We've been so focused on Chapter 17, but a lot of news has come out as well. At the Mando premiere the other night, all of the cast was invited, but there were some cast members who are not confirmed yet for Season 3, like Ming-Na Wen, Bill Burr, Rosario Dawson. Could they also feature in the third season, or is it because they've been in the show in the past and have close ties with Lucasfilm? I think it's most likely to be the latter, but I'd love to see more of Bill Burr as Miggs Mayfeld, not to mention the return of Ming-Na Wen. We're all hoping Boba and Fennec are in this season. I wouldn't count on Ahsoka being in it. Her own series comes out later this year, so I do think it's just because she was part of the show in the past. In other Mando updates, Katee Sackhoff confirmed something I spoke about the other day, that we underestimate Bo-Katan's age. A lot of fans wondered, how old is she during the Mandoverse? Because there is no canon answer. Well, in a new interview she confirms, when we first see her in the Clone Wars, she has just left teenage years, so 18, 19 or 20, and therefore, in The Mandalorian she's in her 50s. Not that it matters, but many fans were curious. Dave Filoni has confirmed that Ahsoka is in post-production and they're now doing visual effects and music. In an interview with Screen Rant, he and Jon Favreau confirm all three 2023 live-action shows connect to each other: The Mandalorian Season 3, Ahsoka, and Skeleton Crew. And if you guys remember, there was a Making Star Wars report that said Skeleton Crew involves a pirate gang that involves Niktos and Weequays. Could they be part of Gorian Shan's group that we just saw in Episode 1 of Season 3? Dave Filoni also spoke about the armourer, saying in Mandalorian lore, she was not the first of her kind, there were many armourers that came before her. The biggest point of discussion over the last couple of days was when Jon Favreau implied that 2 years had passed between The Mandalorian Season 2 and the Book of Boba Fett, which means Grogu trained for 2 years, but this is not clear. In another interview with Variety, he made it sound as though he meant 2 years between the two shows, so it's not really clear what he meant by that, but finally he elaborated by saying, between 0 and 2 years have passed between Season 2 and the Book of Boba, so take that as you will. And finally, speaking with a Hollywood Reporter, Dave Filoni opened up about The Last Jedi because he shadowed Rian Johnson on that movie. In his own words, he said, Kathleen Kennedy and I talked from the very beginning of her coming into Lucasfilm about whether there would be opportunities for me to experiment with live action or try it, and she really worked at coming up with a plan to educate me and get me involved. I visited J.J. Abrams on The Force Awakens, I visited Gareth Edwards on Rogue One, and I visited Rian Johnson on The Last Jedi. But Rian was the one who shoved me up front, sticking lenses in my hand and really getting me immersed in it, and so I still talk with him to this day. He's obviously a very talented filmmaker, and I was just very fortunate to be in such an environment where I could sit and listen and learn. And when asked where Grogu is during the sequel trilogy, he said they're still working that out, but he does make it clear they don't have to overlap with the sequels. He could be off doing something very different. He also addresses Yoda's comments in Return of the Jedi, when gone am I, the last of the Jedi will you be? And he says how now, that couldn't be further from the truth, everything's changed, but his main focus is expanding this universe. Not everything has to connect, some things do, but when it comes to Grogu's future, he does say that could be elsewhere. Really awesome stuff. And so now guys, onto the Bad Batch. That was one of the best episodes of the entire show so far, maybe even the best. This is what I think Season 2 should have been right from the start, and more than anything, one of my fan theories might be coming true. After the Bad Batch Season 1 finished airing, I put out 2 videos about the future of Omega. In one of them, I mentioned that in Rogue One, there is an archived Imperial project by the name of Mark Omega in the Data Vault scene. At the time, back in 2021, I theorized this project might have been to locate or mark where Omega is. My speculation was that Omega is very important to what they're doing on Mount Tantis, because Nala Se was arrested and sent there, and Omega was her assistant on Kamino for many years. Maybe she knows things that are valuable to the Empire's cloning project and Palpatine's most twisted experiments. And to this day, there are many mysteries surrounding the nature of why Omega was created and what further enhancements that she might possess. While the latest episode may have just made my theory very plausible, at the end, Lama Su, the former Prime Minister of Kamino, was surprisingly still alive, and he was brought to Tantis because Dr. Hemlock needs someone to convince Nala Se to cooperate because she won't. The experiment is probably in reference to the Zillo Beast, but there might be multiple projects in relation to Palpatine's contingency. What did Lama Su mean when he said Omega was the key to controlling Nala Se? Is it because the two of them were close, and Omega is the only person who she would listen to? Or is there something more to Omega's DNA, something that would make the projects easier? In Season 1, Tech mentions she's a pure Django clone, but there could be more. I don't see why Omega would cooperate, and of course Nala Se wants the best for Omega. She tried to protect her. And what I will say is, as we slowly approach Plan 99, the final episode in 4 weeks' time, it's all sounding more and more ominous. Let's wait and see.